I work with not just Accra, but also Nairobi and Johannesburg. So those are the 3 breed cities in Africa, in mostly an oversight role. And I work closer with Johannesburg because that's a city that's both C40 and Clean Air Fund led, whereas Accra and Nairobi are Clean Air Fund led cities. So I play more of an oversight role in both Accra and Nairobi. Yeah, so like I've mentioned, C40 Cities is actually a partner in the Breed Cities program. It's a program that's run by Bloomberg Philanthropies, the Clean Air Fund, and C40 Cities. So we all collaborate. Bloomberg Philanthropies is the funder, but the actual day-to-day work on the ground is done collaboratively between both the C40 Cities and the Clean Air Fund. Yeah, it's a tricky one that we face. We want to make sure that African cities are being ambitious in the steps that they're taking to improve the air quality. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind that these are developing countries or cities within developing countries. So they're still trying to make sure that their economies are growing. So we don't want to see a situation where, policies are put in place that sort of negate that growth. We want to make sure that we're able to strike a good balance between protecting people's health but still making sure that economies are growing and that these cities are getting to a state where they're on par with, at some stage hopefully, a lot of the cities in developed countries. We really try and make sure within C40, but then within the Breed Cities program as well, that for instance, if there's a city that we're working with that does not have say the necessary monitoring network, if they have no monitoring on the ground at all, how do we then help to sort of set up that baseline, make sure that there's a foundation in place, a solid sort of data repository, so that policy can be made against that backdrop and that it is sort of evidence-based, so that we have a good evidence base for policy to be built on. As I mentioned, I work on the Breed Cities program, but through C40, I also lead another program called African Cities for Clean Air. So this is C40's only regional air quality program, where we only work with African cities on air quality. We are currently working with 12 cities, so the 3 that I mentioned that are Breed Cities. In West Africa, we also work with Freetown, Lagos, Abidjan, Dakar, and then Accra. In East Africa, we work with Addis Ababa, Nairobi, and Dar es Salaam. And then in South Africa, we work with Johannesburg, Durban, the city of Tshwane, the city of Ekurhuleni, and Cape Town. So it's all mega cities, and that is generally C40's business is with mega cities. We are hoping that as the organization grows, we will be starting to work a lot more with the secondary cities. And I think this is very, very important for air pollution. I think you've heard today in the room, this is not a problem that respects boundaries. It doesn't stop at the border of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly and say, okay, I can't go past this, right? So it's a cross-boundary problem, and it has an impact on people that are outside a city's, what's demarcated as a city's boundary. What's really fascinating for me, I think when I started working with African cities more broadly, when I joined C40 Cities, I hadn't had much experience. I had just been working with South African cities prior to that. What really struck me is how complex, if we're looking specifically at Accra, the 13 district situation is. So the fact that, through this work and other previous work, the city has actually been able to collaborate across those 13 districts is something that is very, very commendable. Generally within a city, we work with cities, so I'm going to make reference to cities, but generally within cities, you have one air quality department, one climate change department, one transport department. So even collaboration across those various departments is not something that's easy to do, and breaking down those silos. Now you've got those in 13 different districts. That's a lot of people to come together to make sure that you move this work forward. And the fact that that the city has been able to do that, I think, is really, really a great achievement. So I think that's something that we want to see a lot more of, because, I think we understand from the presentations today and just in general, like, people that sit in an air quality department can't do this alone. They can work on sort of the foundations for developing a policy and work on deploying a network of low-cost sensors, or start a communications campaign so that people can be more informed. But if you don't bring in somebody from a transport department, if you're trying to implement a transport intervention, if you don't bring in somebody from an energy department, if you're trying to look at some sort of intervention within the cooking space, clean cooking space, if you don't have those people coming in from these different departments, it's going to get to a point where everything is just going to stall. So that collaboration is so key across the board, and Africa's doing a tremendous job with that.